sales and about the tax. They will talk to us about some issues that may arise and answer any questions that we may have about our taxes. After the presentation, we will also have Meredith Schwartz from Title Guaranty talk to us about title insurance and title issues and answer any questions that we may have regarding that topic. We will open up for questions after the presentation. However, if you do have a question during the presentation, please type it in the chat box and the presenter will then answer when they get a chance. All right. Oh, okay, thank you. All right. I would like to first introduce Lisa Miura and Keita Joe from Hawaii County Real Property Tax Office. Thank you so much for presenting today. Would you mind if you were being recorded?
Not at all.
All right, so the floor is yours, Keita.
All right, if I could share my screen. I have a presentation. All right, let's do this.
Share screen. There we go.
Hey, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So Lisa could not be here at the moment. Like I mentioned, she's at council right now, so she's has quite a full plate at the moment. She'll be jumping in as soon as she gets done with that. But we wanted to share some information regarding our tax foreclosure process. We actually have a sale that's coming up next week, Thursday on June 8th. That's going to be held at the Civic Center in Hilo. So I just want to go through our process a little bit. And before I start, I also want to thank you guys for having us. And we're here to answer any of your questions regarding that process. So real property tax represents 74% of the general fund, or $450 million is the current budget that's being proposed at council as we speak. These revenues are used to pay for police, fire, civil defense, parks and recreation, elderly activities. It runs the gamut of all the services that the county provides. The tax foreclosure process is a really important part in maintaining equity in our tax system to ensure that everybody's paying their fair share in terms of taxes. We do have semi-annual tax foreclosure sales. These are auctions. Usually they're typically in the months of June and January. Over the last 2 tax sales, we've sold over 177 parcels, and we've recouped $480,000 in unpaid taxes, penalties, and interest, along with a process which starts off with a lot, many more parcels. So even though we sold 177 parcels, we had 400 delinquent parcels that paid taxes and recouped about 1.8 million prior to the actual sales themselves. So I'm going to talk about our real property tax collections process and how that ties into the foreclosure process, foreclosure timeline, our tax sale itself, and some of the questions regarding title insurance that many of you guys might have. So as far as our collection process, the Hawaii County Code allows for a sale of property if there is a delinquency of 2 years or more. Typically, we actually sell the properties about 3 to 4 years of delinquency, and that allows us to go through our due diligence in terms of preparing properties for tax sale, notifying all of the owners. But what you see on the screen is a calendar, so to speak, timeline of when our fiscal calendar starts. So we start on a fiscal calendar July 1st. We have 2 general installments. The first installment's due August 20th of every year, and then the following installment is due February 20th. We also issue interim bills, and these are for individuals who may have inadvertently forgotten to pay. Maybe they didn't receive the bill in the mail for a variety of reasons. But we send out an interim bill in October and April of every year just to let people know that there is tax liability that's due. So over the course of 3 to 4 years, a minimum of 12 bills are issued to a property owner before we actually foreclose on a property. We go through an additional process to notify all owners and lien holders of the impending foreclosure. So it's a pretty structured, lengthy process. We start off with an informal jeopardy letter. This is a letter to let individuals know that there are some unpaid taxes. They're in jeopardy of going through the tax foreclosure process. And I'll go on to the next slide. I'll go into the actual timeline itself. But there's a preliminary letter that's issued thereafter. This is a certified letter to notify all owners of the impending action. And then finally, we have a final letter. This is a registered letter that's sent out to all individuals and lien holders to notify them of the impending sale. We also do property postings on site. So every property that's sold at tax sale, we do a posting on site. And then we also provide advertising. So the Kauai County Code has a provision where we also, a very costly provision, I'll add, that provides advertising in the West Hawaii Today, as well as the Hilo Tribune and the Star Advertiser. And the reason why we do the Star Advertiser is there is a provision in terms of the number of individuals or circulation that's required. And we only achieve that through the Star Advertiser. This next slide is the foreclosure timeline. And we usually run on a 1.5-year cycle. So we actually have 3 collectors that are assigned to specific areas of the island. They go through their list, and every 6 months, we'll have a tax sale hitting a different zone or section. As I mentioned, we send out jeopardy letters. Usually we send out about 1,200 of these letters that are sent regular mail. And this is about 6 months before the actual sale itself. That results in a lot of calls, a lot of visits to our office to rectify the situation. We try our best to work with individuals to help them through this process. We understand that there's a lot of financial strains on individuals, so we're more than happy to work through them with them through this process. So we do get some payments on this front end. After 2 months has passed, we start sending preliminary letters. This is via certified mail. We whittle down that list of 1,200 down to 1,100. And then 3 months out, we order a litigation guarantee, and that's our visual determination or assessment of who owns the property, who has interest in it in terms of lien holders. And that allows us to serve the final letters 45 days before the sale to all parties that have a vested interest in the property. At that point, we're sending out only about 200 registered letters. And that's really a function of Title's ability to get these litigation guarantees to us. It's an extensive process, so there's only so much that can be processed and get and sent to us. As far as 45 days, that's when we do our property posting. So our appraisers, along with our collection staff, will actually post a notice on site to notify anybody there. We'll even post it to trees, abandoned cars, you name it. That at 45 days, that's our point of getting our first Lit G update. And then 30 days before the sale, that's when advertising occurs. So you may be aware or have seen the advertising going through. We run that. I believe we do 3 advertisings in the 3 different papers 30 days prior. And so right now we're at the point of getting ready for our tax sale, which is going to happen again next week, Thursday. And at this point, we're down to about 60 to 150 parcels that are actually going to be auctioned off. For the sale next week, we have 70 parcels that are auctioned off. That will be auctioned off. After the sale, 14 days after, we'll get our second Lit G update, and that's to identify if there's any lien holders that may have been added to title or to the record, I should say, just before the actual sale itself. We'll serve all owners and lien holders a notice 30 days after our sale to let them know that the property has sold and if there's any surplus funds. So a surplus fund is any money above and beyond our taxes, penalties, interest, and fees. So let's say our upset price at auction is $2,000, but we have a bidder that bids $4,000. We have an upset of $2,000. And so we serve all owners and lien holders this notice that there is a $2,000 pot of money that's waiting for some claims to come in. And so we have 1 year after the sale, lien holders have the opportunity to claim the surplus. And then thereafter, the owners have 2 years to claim the surplus. And then after 2 years, that's at the point at which those surplus amounts are distributed. On this timeline, you'll also see a redemption deadline 1 year after the sale. That redemption is related to a provision in the code that allows an owner who has lost their property due to tax sale, they have 1 year to redeem the property, which basically means they can go to the successful bidder and they can basically arrange to pay that successful bidder the money that was paid at tax sale plus 1% interest per month. This is a process that the county doesn't get involved with.
She had in the garden. And May checked with her on avocado. All in green.
I took the avocado, but
Lori said no to the moya.
Sorry.
Well, it sounds like Wailana.
Yeah.
Jim, that's your microphone picking it up. You better mute yourself.
on Sarah.
Right. We'll push through. As far as the
Keita, because you're the host, you could mute everybody.
okay,
Go to participants and mute everyone.
let's do that. Mute all. We good? All right, perfect. Thank you. So as far as the redemption deadline, as I mentioned, individuals do have 1 year after the sale to redeem that. Again, the county doesn't get involved. Typically, we'll see that a redemption is included in what's called a redemption fee. Looks like the mute didn't work. So that's the timeline as far as the tax sale foreclosure process. Next slide I have is, so the tax sale itself. The tax sale interest is basically transferred by way of a tax deed. All of our sales are as is. So what that means is the county of Hawaii doesn't offer any warranties, just do title, any facts, circumstances, conditions, defect. It's as is. As I mentioned, there is a 1 year right of redemption by the former owner. And then generally the successful bidder is not responsible for any liens. And in that respect, the county does make an effort to get releases of liens. Unfortunately, we're not always successful. We have seen federal liens on property, state liens that are not expunged from the actual property itself. And in that respects, we aren't under any obligation to provide clear title. As I mentioned before, the upset price reflects the unpaid taxes, penalties, interest, and tax sale fees. So the current fees as they stand, they run close to $2,000. So the litigation guarantee and any updates itself run about $750. We have advertising, which is exceptionally expensive these days. We have a recordation fee, postage, police presence at all of our sales. So these fees can definitely add up. One of the challenges for individuals is their ability to obtain title insurance. And, as much as we mentioned sales are as is, where is, we do have individuals who do win the successful bidders. We have them sign a disclaimer. So here's an example of the disclaimer, again, expressing what I had mentioned before, sold as is, no warranties. Counties under no obligation to provide clear title. So a lot of individuals have come to the county because there is a challenge with tax sale properties. And the challenge is really about what do you do with the property 10 years later, 15 years later, when you're ready to sell it. And unfortunately, title insurance is a separate matter. It doesn't mean title guarantee, even though they provided the litigation guarantees for the sale or any other company. it doesn't mean that they're going to provide the title insurance. Even though we provide our due diligence, that due diligence might not meet the criteria of underwriting. That's a business decision made by the underwriters, for which the county doesn't have any control over. So we do make it known at the time of the sale that this is definitely a challenge for individuals buying properties that are tax sales. We have heard that title insurance recently can be issued, but this is on a case-by-case basis. And again, a business decision, I don't have purview to the decisions for those, the reasons for those. But we do understand that on occasion, title insurance is granted on tax sale properties. That pretty much concludes what I wanted to share with the group as far as real property tax. I don't know, does anybody have any questions? Kind of ran through this pretty quick.
I really appreciated your layout of the presentation. That was really good. Very easy to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions? Well, thank you so much, Keita, for your informative presentation. I'm sure all of us are grateful for the information you did provide for us today. And apologize for Lisa not being here. That's too bad, but
she's actually here. She stepped in.
oh, she did.
Yeah, I don't know if this could show her. There she is.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, the budget got passed, if anybody cares. Tax rates are not changing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. We really do appreciate you coming on today for us. All right, on that note, I would like to introduce Meredith Schwartz from Title Guaranty. Meredith, are you there? There
Okay,
you go.
perfect.
Hi, Meredith.
I was like, the host isn't letting me. Hi. No. Hi, Keita. Good to finally have a face
Yeah.
with a name there. Thank you all for having me. I wanted to kind of piggyback what Keita was saying about the tax sales and about insuring. So basically it's a lot of liability to insure on a tax sale. And a lot of times we're getting requests, they come into escrow and they find out, okay, due to a tax sale in the chain of title, Title Guaranty is not able to insure. It is a case-by-case basis. The majority of the time that we are not going to be able to insure is because either A, the tax sale happened within 10 years of trying to sell the property again, and our underwriters would like to see the proof from the county of all those letters that were sent out via certified mail. Our underwriters want to see the proof that everybody received those letters that were sent. And if there's not the return receipt from those letters that are signed, then our underwriters are not going to feel comfortable with insuring, because it's really a matter of they need confirmation that everybody that was sent those letters actually received those letters. So nobody can come back and say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't get notified. I want this property, or I feel like I should, be granted this property. That's going to be your most common reason of why we're not going to be able to insure. Sometimes if, say it's within a couple years that the tax sale happened and we get notified, okay, there's a tax sale in the chain of title and we can't insure. What I like to do is just ask the seller or even the agent, hey, can you obtain a copy of all the letters that were sent out, who they were sent out to, and get the certified receipts from the county? Can you obtain those? Because then I can present those to our title department and say, hey, I understand maybe this tax sale happened within the past 4, 5, 6 years. However, the client has presented us with everything they were able to obtain from the county, all the receipts, can you please reevaluate the situation? And it's not common, but it has happened to where that client has produced us with all the documentation from the county. The county obtained it, they kept it, they gave it to the client. I presented it to underwriters and they've approved it and they were able to insure on the property. It does not happen all the time. Again, it's a case by case basis, but it's not a, oh no, there's a tax sale and it just can't be done, period. It can be done. It's just a lot. It's a lot of work to get it done, but it can be done. So it's frustrating. We understand to see that there's a tax sale on the chain of title, but it's that liability that we're really concerned with. But if we can see those receipts, a lot of the time we can, if they're all there, then we can obtain a title policy.
So Meredith,
Yes.
okay, here we go. The problem is it requires personal service. And we have so many Japanese owners and most of them are dead. They don't have a bureau of death where they record deaths like we do here. They have family registries.
Right.
It's almost impossible to go find all the heirs because that's what guys are worried about.
Right.
In order to get, so what needs to happen and what I've been trying to get the legislature to do is we need to pass a state statute that mirrors the regular foreclosure stuff rules, that after so many years all claims are extinguished. And that Joy had them do something, but it was not what we were, because we have people, they buy these properties, they put their life savings into these properties,
Right.
and then they can't resell them.
Right. It really is a tough situation, and we completely understand that. And that would be wonderful if there was that timeline to say, okay, after X amount of years, you know, that's it, it's expunged, the liability, and we're good. But because that's not the situation right now, we just have to go with, you know, doing the best that we can with getting just the proof at this time. I mean, until that comes to play. There's been times, and the reason that this has happened is because there has been times that people have said, oh yeah, property should be mine, and you know, the client has won. You know, I can't say that this is something that has happened with, you know, Title Guaranty or any other title company out there, but this has happened to others in the past, that it's something that we can't take that liability. It's just too great.
I get that, but there needs to be a drop dead date after which, you know, too bad you guys don't care about, you've abandoned your property now.
Yeah.
Now it's clear to
That
go.
would be wonderful when that comes out. I think that
Well,
would.
I don't know. I just can't get anybody to take up the cause at the legislature because it seems like it's got to go through, be a state thing so that all the title companies would be covered. But the other thing is, I don't know if you can you do a quiet title and do, because of course that's very expensive, but
that's just I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm not gonna suggest a quiet title. That seems like a lot of liability then for the purchaser as well. Yeah, I can't recommend that. Yeah, I
Hello,
think
Meredith.
that
This is.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Meredith. This is Capono Paul with Salvia Realty. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there was, I guess specifically for Title Guaranty, there's a 10-year rule. You know, if the tax sale happened within the last 10 years, your underwriters, the title department most likely won't touch it. Is there a reason why 10 years is the number?
There's not a specific reason. That is just a ballpark. We like to think that if something has happened later than 10 years, then nobody's going to come back, you know, to try and claim the property after 10 years. And that's why it's a better chance to get a title policy after 10 years, but that is not a drop dead set date. I've seen properties that had a tax sale, 12, 13 years prior, and they're still not going to insure. It is a case by case basis. I'd say within the 10-year mark, you have, it's a harder chance if you're within that 10 years. But again, it's not a set timeline.
Okay, thank you for that. And if
Yeah.
Keita is still on the call, and if I can bring him back into the conversation, my next question would be, if the title company is looking for copies of receipts of the certified mail being received by an owner, how far back does real property tax records go to allow that? And how would someone obtain a copy of those information to provide to the title company?
Yeah, so we actually, because the tax sales are a fairly sensitive item, we keep those records for quite some time. I mean, I believe we've had some requests back into the 90s or 80s for tax sale documents. But we're more than happy to provide any of the documents associated with tax sale. We get requests. Our staff pull that stuff together, pull it out of storage, and provide all those documents. I think the one thing I wanted to add is, the county's going to do its due diligence, but if there's an individual that doesn't respond or doesn't receive those notifications, we're going to move forward with the tax sale. Our interest is to ensure equitability within the tax system. And so, even though we do send things out, they're oftentimes returned back to us, no signature, undeliverable, whatnot. So the attempt is made. As I mentioned on the slide, our burden might be a little bit different than title guarantees when it comes to insuring. There's probably a little bit more robust process, again, because it's a business decision to take on that risk.
Could I add something real quick to that? Meredith, on some of them that were getting challenged, I know TG's reached out to us to see if we paid out lien holders or did surplus. Because a lot of times, like Keita said, I mean, it's not that they just return it, they go unclaimed on purpose because they see something from the county, they know they're delinquent, and they won't sign that certified even if they are alive and well. But when they are happy to sign the surplus claim form. And so I believe in the past, when some of the underwriters have reviewed the surplus claim form as being signed by the prior owner, sometimes that also allowed the insurance for those properties to be insured. Do you know if that changed?
I don't. I know there's so much that our underwriters discuss that helps them determine on case-to-case basis that I'm not privy to. I don't see what goes behind the scenes with our underwriters. And again, because it is a case by case, they're going to look at everything from delivery of the documents to the receipt of them to the time frame to the whole timeline of everything. That I don't even see. I don't see that process. I do know that it's not that black and white of a situation.
Yeah.
Because of situations like you were talking about. I mean, it really is. They just review each case scenario.
Okay. No, I understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Donna, did you have a question that I can answer? I see the hands raised.
I do. Thanks, Meredith.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was going back to the notices, and in fact, I worked with one person who got a notice that they were notified that it was going to be sold. And I don't know if that was the final letter or the preliminary letter, because I understand they're both given certified. But that, along with, if they have one of those, in which case they did, and then at the end, when they did claim their money back, that is another way of noting that they knew about it. Having those two should make it a little bit more easy, maybe.
I would think so. I know I have been surprised with some cases where title has approved a title policy, and I've also been surprised in some cases where they have not approved a policy. What their rhyme or reason is, I don't know. They must be seeing something that I'm not seeing. I only will see documents that are presented to me that I can pass on to our title department and underwriters. In a case like that, I'm going to say more documentation, the better. And if they've received payment, absolutely, that would be, I would look at that as that's fantastic proof. But then again, I don't know if they're missing a dozen, 2 dozen certified receipts, and maybe that would be the deterrent. You know, I most of the time we don't see what is handed to our title department unless I personally request that from either the agent or the seller, and try to assist by giving title department the letters, the receipts, all the proof that they get from the state.
Okay, I don't know why there would be that many. It sounds like there's only like 2 or 3, but there could be, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I was according to Keita, it sounded like there was a lot of letters and way more letters than I even thought that were sent out.
Yeah, so we send out the bills. The bills are issued, but once it goes to
Right.
the tax sale process, it's you know, we start getting certified letters, but those aren't as frequent, or the volume isn't nearly what our bills represent.
Right. Yeah, no, it's the letters that our underwriters really looking for, is those certified receipts from the letters that are mailed out.
Okay, and just to note, for instance, this one I'm working with, they paid $7,000 for the lot. It sold for $30-some thousand. They got back a lot more than they paid for it. So it's actually a moneymaker for some of these people that are getting the money back after not paying their taxes. Kind of interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. One more question. How do you initiate this with a title officer? Do you take the information to one of the officers, or how do you initiate this request for title insurance?
So a lot of the times we'll start with, I'll get a broker's report, the preliminary title report for the agent. Then we'll get the notification from our title department saying, okay, I can't even provide you with a a preliminary report because there's been a change in title. That right there is my cue. Okay, let's see what we can do to have them reevaluate the situation. So I'll, at that point, let the agent know before it's even gone into escrow, there's a tax sale in the chain of title. If your client can provide me with all the documentation that they can get from, say, Keita or the county, I can then submit it to title department or an underwriting and see if they'll reevaluate the situation and reconsider. And then we can start right in the beginning before it even gets into escrow. Oh, I hope I answered your question. I think Cindy has a question.
I was just wondering if there's a website that people could browse the upcoming tax auction sales.
Yeah, so a good question. On www.hawaiipropertytax.com, so that's our website. You'll see a link on the top toolbar that indicates tax sales, and that's the latest list of properties that are on tax sale. It gets updated daily. Usually that list is not released until about 30 days before the actual tax sale itself. So you can actually go on there right now and see the list for next week. As people come in and pay properties or pay the delinquent taxes, that list is updated. So we still have people coming in, paying off their taxes. So I expect that list to drop from 70, where it is now, down a little bit before the actual sale occurs.
And the litigation guarantees are there too, so you can review the reports.
This might be a dumb question, but what is a litigation guarantee?
It's not a dumb question.
No.
Meredith, you want to give the official answer, or?
I've actually never, that must be between you and our title department. I have never even seen those.
So basically it's a title report with a add-on. So it basically insures the title report, or insures the county. I think it's up to $50,000 in liability. So it's just an added assurance that the report is pretty solid.
Oh.
Okay, I just wanted to mention too, again, this is Kapono Paul, Salvia Realty, along with Joy Dillon some others on this call, a part of our government affairs committee. I would like to continue this discussion. Lisa, I know we're meeting with you next week for a different subject. But I'm kind of wondering if there's a way to get in touch with somebody within title who's, open and willing to discuss this matter further. Because if you look at the list for the next tax sale coming up next week, 85% of the properties on that list are in Puna. And so there's a lot of properties that if title insurance is an issue, it's taking a lot of viable property off the market because people won't build on them, won't be able to get financing on them without title insurance. And we already have issues in Puna with regular insurance in general with the lava hazard zones. So there's a lot working against the Puna area in general. And I think there needs to be some kind of solutions, knowing that insurance is always tied directly to the risk. Are there ways that we can either legislatively work around it, administratively work around it? I think there's a big discussion to be had here to sort this out.
Lisa, is that something, do you want, if you want, I can get you in touch with our title officers that work on specifically like the Puna area?
So we all the
if
way
you
up
want.
to meetings with Lauren Hirano.
Oh, that's
Multiple
even better.
Yeah, so we've gone with our court counsel from the very first time we got a hint that there might be an issue with the signed certified letters. And then it turned into a couple years later, and still majority of them were being insured, and that was in like 2012. And then about 2015, we started hearing about this 10-year mark. And then just this past few months, I started hearing from other title companies that they all took the stand that if the tax deed was done within the past 20 years, they were going to question it. So, I mean, the market keeps moving on us, and we've worked with Corporation Counsel who is listening in to make sure we don't misspeak at all, that, the title company has the authority, their option to not insure. It is frustrating for us because people obviously, some of them are intending to buy at the tax sale to turn around as an investment property. The issue we have is, when we've talked to, there was somebody with the court system at one time that we did go and talk to, and they said, you guys are following everything to your code. You're sending out more letters than is required by the county code. And they view that as the law, but it's still a business decision in behalf of TG. And it's not just title guarantee. I feel like I've seen TG issue probably more of the case by case, whereas other companies are saying, no, just flat out, no, they don't want the hassle, especially in the last couple of years, right? You guys were so busy with a lot of work that wasn't sort of a liability issue that they didn't even want to consider it. But we have tried to reach out to the top people at TG to get this hammered out. And it is frustrating for us because we felt like, well, we're paying TG for the litigation guarantee, and here they won't even insure stuff. But two separate sides of title guarantee. It's not the escrow officers, it's not, and I think some of the escrow officers don't even understand what's happening, but it's not up to them, it's the underwriters. And some of these underwriters aren't sitting in Hawaii, right? They're in the mainland. There's issues that happen in the mainland. And that's where this huge process became questionable, because in the mainland, they don't go through the due diligence that we have to do in Hawaii. So it is set up very different. A state legislation might help if the state will do it. I haven't had the best practice with all of the legislators, so I'd love to say that would be awesome, but I really don't know what the answer is. All I can tell you is at one point we thought, do we just stop doing these? But I can tell you what, the second the public hears the county's not going to sell the properties, people aren't paying taxes, and those of us that are honest and pay them pay more in taxes. So it is a very frustrating cycle we're going through.
I had another question.
Sure.
So during that redemption period, let's say, for example, somebody purchases kind of a ramshackle house, and can they remove that from the property during that 1-year redemption period?
I think the general consensus is it's not recommended, because you do run the risk of that old owner coming in and redeeming the property, and I could foresee some issues with that. Generally, it's advisable. While we can advise, it's, the reality is you probably should leave the property as is for that year, to minimize your risk in the event the old owner does come back and redeem the property.
Okay, I was just curious because different people have different opinions on what's a tear down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Wow, this was really great. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, for all this information. I know it's helped me understand it a little more. Yeah, I just thank you so much. YPN helps us become better realtors through connecting, educating, and networking events like this, helping each other grow. So thank you again to our speakers today. And if there's no other questions, I hope all of you have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys.